Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to England once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. Now, these guys are a very well established and very well respected name within the English beer scene, and I've had a lot of different beers from these guys over the years, many different styles, and if people were to ask me about them, I would say that they are just very solid all round, although the beers that have really stood out to me the most have been the bigger, stronger and kind of barrel-aged things. But we have had some very good IPAs and other things from this brewery over the years as well. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I haven't reviewed from this brewery before, and if memory serves me correctly, I don't think I've ever tried a beer from this particular style family involving this brewery either. So that makes me very, very curious, because it is a style that I very much enjoy, and it is, just quite different from what you normally find from this brewery, at least in my experience. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to England like I said. We're going to go to the kind of London area in the southeast, but out to the west of London a wee bit to Berkshire, and to be specific, we are going to go to a little place called Finchampstead. Finchampstead of course happens to be home to a couple of breweries, but the one that we're going to have a look at today is Siren Craft Brewery. So this particular beer is called Santo. It comes in at 5% ABV, and they're describing this one as a dry hopped lager, although on Untappd they've got it listed as an India Pale Lager, because it does contain quite a little bit of American hop, and it's not too often that I review IPLs and things like that these days. But yeah, a nice lager beer from Siren. If memory serves me correctly, this will be the very first lager that I'm trying from this brewery. I really couldn't tell you if I've had something like this from them on tap somewhere, but yeah, I'm pretty certain I haven't reviewed any lagers from this brewery, so that makes this one a wee bit different. I love trying different styles from breweries that I know quite well, and Siren were of course one of the first English breweries that I really kind of came across when I was getting the channel started up all those years ago. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. The Santo, a 5% American IPL, whatever you want to call it, lager beer from Siren Craft Brewery in Finchampstead, Berkshire, England. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Siren Craft Brewery before, and we will have a few more to add to that over the next little while. I'll tell you why in a wee second. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from that area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the English playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to quite regularly of course, because we do get a bunch of English beers out here in Hong Kong, which is always nice. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Siren Craft Brewery once again then. So, Siren Craft Brewery was officially founded back in 2012 by Darren Anley, and the company is based in Finchampstead in Berkshire in England, which you'll find to the southeast of Reading and kind of southwestish of London. So Darren had previously been in the tech industry, but he was also an avid home brewer on the side, and he actually worked on most of his original recipes prior to establishing the brewery. The initial beers were apparently completed in 2010, but they were only bottled a few years later in 2013, and the first beer that was released was the Maiden Barley Wine, and there's been several iterations of this one since. It really is a very, very nice beer. If you come across one of those, I highly recommend that you try it. Beautiful barley wine, but that's a style that I very much love as well. But yeah, the brewery is named after the Sirens in Greek mythology, who were women or winged creatures, and their singing used to lure sailors onto the rocks. And a number of the beers in the initial core range that Siren had, I think a few of them are still around, they were named after different sirens. But since foundation, this brewery's been growing steadily. They've made they've turned into into one of the most established craft breweries in England, I would say, and they've been gradually upping their brewing capacity and, you know, putting out lots and lots of different beers. They had to grow quite early on, though. In 2014 they had to add a new bottling line, but in more recent years they've converted to the 440ml cans, such as this one. In the early days, Darren hired the American Ryer-Whitter Merrithew as his brewer. He's now back in the US, and from 2016 they brought in another American called Kyle Larson, and he was in charge of brewing until 2019, at which point he was succeeded by Englishman Sean Knight, who is still in place at Siren today. A few years later, in February of 2024, they announced that they planned to open a new flagship bar in Reading at the new Station Hill development. They used crowdfunding to kind of get this off the ground, and apparently they managed to raise £270,000, which is pretty damn impressive. But the bar opened in May of that year, 2024, and it boasts 30 taps. I think that's somewhere that I need to go and film an out and about video, actually. But yeah, as of May 2025, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys are producing around 20,000 hectolitres of beer per year, which is 2 million litres, and they've produced over 650 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. They do have their tap yard bar, which is right next to the brewery, and this one has been open since December 2017. That's another place that I am definitely keen to go and do some filming at. So I'll need to talk to my English beer tubing colleagues and see if any of them are game to do that. I think they would be in principle, but I've heard it is a little bit difficult to get to this place, especially if you're going to have a few beers. It's quite rural from what I understand. But yeah, I think that is everything we can really say about Siren Craft Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. But yeah, that's that. Let's go on and actually have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. I have to say, I do like the kind of modern Siren artwork on the cans. I think it's pretty attractive, actually. It's kind of like some of the old school Japanese paintings, the ones that have got several layers and things. I forget what those are called. But yeah, plain black top on the can there. It's a 440ml can, incidentally. There you can see the Siren symbol there, which is kind of like a fish hook or a mermaid's tail, something like that. I'm not sure exactly what you know it's supposed to be, and my brain's a bit tired at the moment to think about that. But yeah, you can see on the top of the can there as well, there is Siren Craft Brewery. It tells you a little bit about the beer on the back then. So it says Santo Dry Hopped Lager. Santo is a distinctly Siren lager. Our take on the style is full of American hops, working in harmony to offer subtle tropical fruit notes and bright citrus flavors. It pours with a delicate haze and striking aroma, saintly fresh but devilishly drinkable. And yeah, I can imagine it will be. But yeah, the hops in this one apparently are Magnum, Amarillo, Mosaic, Simcoe and Citra. All of those are American, but Magnum can be grown in a few different places from what I understand. But yeah, Magnum is like, about 12% alpha acid normally, and it gives you this quite distinctive sort of noble-like spicy green component. Amarillo's about 12% alpha acid, it's going to give you that big oily orange. Mosaic's about 14% alpha acid, it's got a little touch of earthiness to it, but quite a bright tangerine orange. Simcoe again is about 12% alpha acid, and that's going to give you a lot of sort of passion fruit. And then Citra is 14% alpha acid. It gives you a lot of mango primarily, but sometimes a little bit of peach, and it can give you lemon, lime and lychee and all that. It really depends on the malt base that you put it in. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the hops. As I said, this one is a 5% lager beer. Untappd is describing it as an India Pale Lager. These guys are just calling it dry hopped lager. But remember, the thing that defines a lager beer is the fact that it uses a bottom fermenting yeast, cold temperature fermentation. There are lots of different beers within the lager family. You know, Helles, Dunkel, Schwarzbier, Doppelbock, all of these kind of guys. And the Czechs have got their own variants of those, like Svetli, Letzak, Cherny, Tmavy. The Vienna lager is another one. Yeah, there's a lot of different beers in the lager family, if you like, but the main thing is cold temperature fermentation. But yeah, I think we've gone through everything we need to in terms of technicalities about a lager and everything about this particular beer. So let's get it out into the glass then and see what it's all about. This one as I say, I'm very curious about, because I don't think I've ever had a lager from Siren, as I've repeated a few times over the course of this video. Big shout out in this video, incidentally, to my friend Tanya, who brought this beer back with her from her trip to, I think she bought this one in England for me, actually, rather than, she was in Northern Ireland for a wee while, but yeah, she brought back a couple of different Siren cans, and funnily enough, they were a few, most of them were, or a couple of them were a few of the core beers that I'd never gotten around to trying, so now I've got an excuse to review these ones. The can, of course, was a little bit hard, which you can see from the head in here, so this beer might not be in its absolute prime, but I'm sure it will still be nice and drinkable. So at this point, I think we've got maybe about 2/3 of the beer out and into the glass, but it looks very, very nice, I have to say. So yeah, kind of what you'd expect, to be honest, from an IPL or kind of pale lager, if you like. So yeah, you can see that when we poured this one, it had a big kind of bubbly, perfect white head on it. Just let the camera zoom in there, you can see it's kind of smaller bubbles on the surface liquid, and they gradually get bigger the further up the head that you go. But yeah, it does become really pretty damn soapy in a sense. But yeah, appearance wise, you can see this beer's got a lovely kind of bright golden straw sort of colour, and as they said it would be, it's got that little bit of natural haze to it, so probably unfiltered. But yeah, remember, the colour of your haze depends on a few, the colour of your beer, sorry, depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker coloured beer. But any barrel aging that you do, or any adjuncts you put into the beer, will affect its colour as well. But to be quite honest, you don't really have to care about those latter two variables when it comes to lager beers for the most part, unless you're doing a big barrel aged doppelbock, as some of the American breweries like to do. But yeah, there's not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. It does look pretty damn nice, and as I say, pretty much what you would expect in terms of an IPL or an American lager, I guess we could say. Probably that's what we have to call this one, is like an American lager. But yeah, the head has just faded away to be a thinner kind of foamy layer on top, and you've got that lovely kind of fluffy head around or fluffy ring around the edge of the glass there. It looks very, very nice. Yeah, I don't think we need to say anything else about the appearance of this one, in all honesty. So let's go on and have a wee look at the aroma then. I'm very, very curious about this. Alright, okay. So it's actually quite bready, I would say. You know, it's quite a nice bready character for the most part. So I'm just going to fill the glass a wee bit more so the aroma's a little bit further up, if you like, because it smells, you know, it's just a little bit too far away. But yeah, the aroma with this one is kind of what you'd expect. Like, now that I've got it a bit closer to the nose, yeah, I'm getting more of the kind of subtleties and things that I would expect of the different hops. But yeah, it's quite, yeah, I mean, it's quite kind of, how do you say, the backbone of this one really reminds me of like a soft, it reminds me of a nice kind of soft bready lager, if you like. So yeah, it reminds me of a nice kind of soft bready, like Helles lager almost, but then of course you've got all these American hops on top of it. So yeah, the way that that kind of pieces together in this one, I think, is really quite nice. So let's just break it down and describe it a wee bit more in depth. You've got everything you want from this. A little bit of kind of crisp backbone, some nice green component in the hops there, and then yeah, you've got a lovely little bit of fruity character coming out of it. So yeah, the backbone of the beer then here, I would say that it's like, yeah, pretty much like fresh white bready bread crust in here. That comes out of this one. It's very apparent in this beer, just to put it like that. So yeah, lovely fresh white bready bread crust in there. On top of that, you get a little bit of, there's a little tiny hint of woodiness and things, of course, as you very often get with these beers. But yeah, a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker. Yeah, a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker. On top of that, you've got some more, there's a little touch of like a wholemeal brown bread in this one, but not too much. Then you've got a fluffy, kind of fresh but slightly dry white bready character coming out of the beer. For me as well, I think they've used a little bit of Pilsner malt or something like that in here. So yeah, you can smell a little bit of that crisp, dry character from what I suspect is Pilsner malt further back on the aroma. But you've also just got a little touch of sweetness coming out of this one too. So yeah, there's just that little touch of like McVitie's digestive biscuity sweetness in there. A very slight, yeah, there's a very slight kind of, yeah, there's a very slight, you know, McVitie's digestive biscuity note in the middle. Yeah, there's maybe honey, very slight like honey, sorry, is what I meant to say. It's kind of surrounded by that McVitie's digestive biscuity note. So yeah, there's a wee bit of McVitie's digestive biscuity character in there. There's a wee bit of like, yeah, there's a wee bit of that sort of thing going on. And then yeah, you have a little bit of, yeah, I think you've just got a little bit of the kind of more crisp, dry Pilsner malt sitting further back on the nose there. It's actually quite a straightforward beer, this one, in terms of its malty and yeasty backbone. The yeasty character at the back of the nose, it's, yeah, again, it's got that Pilsner malt kind of crispness to it. Bit of like dry white bread in there, a slightly sweeter white bread too, and then a more kind of bread crusty note. There's maybe a little hint of like a sweet brown bread character coming out of this one too. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together, I think, is really nice in this one as well. But I think at that we've covered everything we really need to about the malty side of the beer. So let's go to the hoppy side of things then. So yeah, they talk about this one being a dry hopped lager for the most part. There will be some early edition hops in there as well to give the beer just that little bit of bitterness, I think. So yeah, remember, 3 ways you can hop your beers. Early edition hopping, that takes place usually within the first hour or so of the wort boil. That's responsible for the majority of your bitterness, and it gives you that deep, dank green component. You've got late edition hopping, which takes place in the latter half hour or so of your wort boil, gives you a wee bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and yeah, that's all about flavour and aroma. Yeah, so this one's been mostly dry hopped, and that's where a lot of your flavour will be coming out in this one. And again, that gives you a very bright green component. So with this beer, you do have a little bit of a kind of, there is a slight deep dankness to this one. You can smell there's a wee bit of the earthiness in there, which will be from the Magnum and the Mosaic, of course. You do get, there's not really much pine resin to it though. The green component is mostly quite bright and quite floral, and that little bit grassy as well, I would say. So yeah, the way that this one goes together, yeah, the way that this beer goes together in that sense, I think, is very, very nice. So yeah, it's the green component of this one's kind of what you'd expect. So in terms of the fruity side of this beer, I'm getting, you know, the tropical fruit isn't that strong in this one, to be honest with you. I can smell a wee bit of juicy mango, quite a lot of passion fruit though, so that's the Citra and the Simcoe coming out of this one. There's quite a bit of apricot as well, which both of those two hops are capable of giving you. But I do get a fair little bit of like juicy tangerine orangey notes coming out of it as well. So yeah, the way this one goes together, I think, is really, really quite nice. So yeah, the way that tangerine orange one, the tangerine orangey note comes out of it, I think is very nice. I mean, for me, Amarillo's always been more of an oily orange hop, whereas yeah, Mosaic's always been a little bit kind of softer and more juicy in my experience. So that's worth mentioning here. But yeah, mango, passion fruit, apricot, and a nice kind of tangerine orangey note coming out of it. So yeah, the way everything pieces together in this one, I think, is very, very nice. So gets a big thumbs up from me. yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the aroma. I think it's about time that we have a taste of this one then and see what it's all about. Let me just fire the last bit in here, get a nice wee bit of head on it. I have to say that does look very nice. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see what we think. So yeah, this is the Santo, a dry hopped lager, some people calling it an India Pale Lager, 5% ABV from Siren Craft Brewery in Finchampstead, Berkshire, England. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it is very much like a kind of, yeah, if we can call it one of these kind of craft lagers, it's very much like that. This is, you know, it's quite different to the lagers that I would drink for the most part. If you watch the channel, you'll know that I'm a huge fan of the kind of German and Czech lagers and things like this, the really traditional Central European ones. This beer kind of takes me back a few years, like when I was first getting into craft beer, and yeah, you had a lot of breweries that were talking about, you know, craft lagers and things. That really is what this one kind of comes across as being. But yeah, it is pretty straightforward, but yeah, really nice and drinkable, as they said. You know, you could easily tan a few of these, easy peasy. And I think, yeah, if you take a slightly bigger gulp of this, it really does, yeah, it really does kind of open up. The flavour does open up a wee bit more and show you more what this beer is about. But yeah, it gives you everything. The reason I would say it's more of a craft lager is because it's got a little bit more of that kind of soft, white bready and kind of yeasty component to it that almost makes it a wee bit creamy. And I mean, you could say the same about some of the pivovari beers that you drink in you know, straight from tap in the Czech Republic, but this one is yeah, this one is very much along those lines, but just that little bit drier almost. But yeah, the American hops come across quite differently. It's not quite as bitter in that sense either. So yeah, let's just break down the aroma of this one then, or the flavour of this one, sorry, and see what we have. Brain's so tired in filming this video, guys. But yeah, middle third of your palate then. At the backbone of this beer, you have a lovely fresh white bready bread crust in there. So yeah, lovely fresh white bready bread crust, which I do quite enjoy. So yeah, when you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, sorry, you've got that nice wee touch of woody character coming out of this one. So yeah, a little touch of woody characters in there. There's a wee bit of Jacob's cream, yeah, so fresh white bready bread crust, a little bit of woodiness, Jacob's cream cracker above that. There's a layer of kind of like wholemeal brown bread coming out of this one, and then yeah, there's above that you start, the brown bread's quite minimal, I would say. You get a more dense and slightly sweet white bready character, just just kind of sitting on top of that one there. So yeah, the white bready character's there, and it does get softer and sweeter into the aftertaste, but then above that you just have that little bit of smattering of drier bread from, pardon me, what I really suspect is Pilsner. I will say this beer, it's given me a wee bit of gas. The carbonation really wasn't visible in this one either, which is the funny thing, but yeah, you saw it in the head there that it probably was going to be present. But yeah, you can feel the dryness of the Pilsner malt there. It's a little bit further back on the palate. Yeah, it's a little bit further back on the palate, and it gives you that wee bit of dryness there. But remember, yeah, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. So yeah, keep repeating that. Dry Pilsner malt in there, and then in the dead centre of your palate, you've got that wee oily bubble in this one. So straight up, little touch of sweet caramel in the dead centre of your tongue, straight away. Then surrounding that, you have a little bit of more of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity type note coming out of this one, which I think is is really quite nice. So yeah, it does show you this beer, it is mostly bready in its malt base, but it shows you that wee bit of sweetness into the aftertaste, that's for sure. But yeah, I think we've said everything we need to about the middle third of your palate with this one. It's not a madly complex beer, this, but it is nice and enjoyable. So yeah, let's go to the back third of your palate. And as I've often said, the back third of your palate is going to give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, but just at different intensities. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. The brown bread's in the base, the kind of white bread from the barley malts in the middle there, and then the kind of more Pilsner malty dryness is on top of that. The base of the back third of your palate, fresh white bready bread crust in there, Jacob's cream cracker, the wholemeal brown bready layer sits above that, which is a wee bit more, which is a little bit more, a little bit lighter, taller, more airy. Then yeah, the white bready character above that's a little bit lighter, taller, and more airy as well. And then yeah, you have the white, the more Pilsner malty dryness sitting on top of that. So yeah, no, the way that goes together, I think, is really nice in this one. But yeah, I think on top of all that, you start to get the yeasty side of the beer. So for me, the yeasty side of this beer, at its core, it's got a little bit more of a at its core, it's got a little bit more of a kind of sweet brown bready character. Then it's surrounded by more of a it's surrounded by more of a softer white bready note, and then yeah, fresh white bready bread crust in there as well. And it goes to show you a wee bit of dryness into the aftertaste, but definitely yeah, back third of your palate you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and or compresses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, lovely kind of lovely mix of malty and yeasty character in this one. But yeah, in terms of the hoppy side of things, then for me, the green component on this one isn't too aggressive. It's actually quite smooth. They do call it a dry hop lager, but I would have expected like a wee bit of, pardon me, bitterness, maybe 20 or 30 IBUs, but I don't know if I'm even getting that, in honesty. So yeah, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there, fairly smooth. Then as you move further forward, there's almost a little bit of a woody, herbally sort of thing going on. And as you reach the front corners of your palate, it's got a little bit more of a kind of floral, aromatic sort of thing going on to it. So yeah, you've got that nice little bit of floral aromaticity to it. Not really spicy, actually more kind of oily, but then yeah, round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, I would say. So yeah, the way that goes together is really, really nice. So yeah, I think that covers everything we really need to say about the green component. So let's focus on the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things, just to round off this one. So yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate. Again, the bready build-ups there, the brown bread in the base, the white bread in the middle, the kind of Pilsner malty dryness on top. Base of the front third of your palate, you've got the nice white bready bread crust, the cracker, the wholemeal brown bready layer, which again is quite thin, but slightly sweeter in this case. Same can be said about the white bready layer on top of that, and you can feel a wee touch of the smoother side of the Pilsner malt on top of that. Then you have that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, the way that everything goes together in this one is really quite nice. So yeah, I really like the way that the fruity notes, I like the way that the fruity notes come out in this one as well. So that oily bubble with the fruity esters roll their way out of the beer, it's kind of what you would expect if you know these hops. But if you go to the back of that front third of your palate, you can feel a little bit of mango on top, and that'll be the citra. But of course, I think it's mostly like softer passion fruit and apricot in the back half that front 30 palate. So it's a little bit more of the Simcoe coming out for me. But yeah, as you move into the front half of the front 30 tongue, it is a little bit more sort of, yeah, tangerine and orangey, and that's the Amarillo and the Mosaic that's going to give you that. I'm getting a wee bit more of the kind of brighter tangerine from the Mosaic, in honesty, and there's maybe just a little touch of lime behind the very front tip of the tongue. That could be from the Citra, right enough. But yeah, the fruity character in this one's pretty kind of straightforward, in honesty. I would say, yeah, passion fruit, yeah, apricot, and a sort of tangerine orange and a wee touch of lime. I think that's a good way to sum up the fruity character to this one, of this beer. Come on, bad grammar. But yeah, all in all, really nice, enjoyable lager beer, this one. It does remind me of the kind of craft lagers that were appearing in quite a few places before. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the flavour section. Let's round off with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel then for this video. So yeah, for me, this beer, I would say that it's kind of top end of light bodied. The carbonation is, it does have a good degree of crispness in it, this one. I don't know if that's maybe due to the age of the can. Does it say when it was canned? Yeah, this one was canned on the 15th of October 2024. So yeah, we're drinking this one at about 6 months old. That kind of makes sense as to why it was a wee bit hard and things like that, and why the carbonation is just a little bit. But the beer's still in good condition. So yeah, the carbonation on this one is a little bit crisp, but again, that could be down to the age of the beer. And overall, it's quite a smooth and kind of dry taste or flavour or mouthfeel that you get out of this one, in all honesty. The IBU in this beer, I think it's about 25 IBUs, maybe something like that. There's a wee bit of bitterness to it, and it gives you a bit of the dryness into the aftertaste too, which almost feels like it translates into bitterness, if that makes sense. But yeah, on top of that, there's a little bit of there's a little bit of a kind of sweetness there. So mostly your malt base, a bit drier underneath, smooth in the middle, and a very slight touch of sweetness on top there. Green component, we've said 25 IBUs, and then yeah, there's a really nice kind of soft, juicy, fruity character out of this one. Yeah, a little bit of kind of tropical, apricot-y notes, and yeah, the nice kind of orangey characters as well. So all in all, really, really nice lager beer, this one. Does give me a wee bit of nostalgia, if you like, and definitely cool to try my first lager from Siren, of course. I would love to see these guys do the kind of traditional lager beers. I'm sure they have at some point, but I'd be curious to see these guys do their take on like a Munich Helles or a Czech Tmavi or something like that, because I'm sure if they went for the kind of authentic approach of these ones, they could do it very, very well. But yeah, this one is more American style lager, like modern craft lager, I guess, is another umbrella that you could put this beer under. But yeah, all in all, an interesting experience, this one, and it makes me curious to see what else Siren can do within the lager beer family. But yeah, this one was the Santo, a 5% IPL, I guess we could say. It is kind of very much like an IPL, or an American style lager, this one, from the wonderful Siren Craft Brewery in Finchampstead, Berkshire, England. Really interested to try this one. Thank you again to Tanya for making this review possible. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Siren Craft Brewery as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point very soon. But till the next time, Slange, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll see you guys later. Ciao.